Good evening to everyone. It's very nice to see so many faces, both familiar and new. For the people in the UK, I cannot see your feet, but I hope they're dry. This terrible news has come even to the Belgian news websites about the floodings. Um, but maybe I have to say a little bit about myself, who I am, and what I do. So I'm a viol player and a medieval fiddle player from Belgium. I'm currently in Dublin, and I use those instruments also to accompany my singing. I teach viol. I started teaching viol, I think, about 20 years ago, and I teach both consort, mixed groups, and individuals. So that's a little bit a rough idea. I'm a performer in different settings, and a viol concert is certainly one of my favorite ways of being on stage. What I'm not so used to do is giving talks in front of an audience. Talking in public is maybe not my preferred way of expressing myself towards a group. So I hope you will bear with me, and I'll try to be as clear as possible. I can see all your faces, so if there's something that I say that's absolutely not clear, that makes maybe sense in my head but not to your ears, please give me a little wave, or you can even do an electronic wave, I believe, by the wonders of technology, so that I know that everyone is following what I will say. The talk will be like this: that it will be first more about ideas and theory, and then and then the second half will be more practical exercises and more applied stuff. And in between those two parts, we will also watch a short video of a project I did that I thought was related to what I'm going to tell you today, even if it's not a video of viol consort. And I think I want to kick off with a little anecdote that was instrumental in my thinking about this theme. So I was teaching in a school in Brussels, where there was quite a big viol class, and there used to be 3 consorts of beginner, intermediate, and then advanced level. And usually we would do 2 big projects a year and per semester. And usually I would try to involve some other people of the school also. We did a project around the fables of La Fontaine with the drama class, and another time we did a Charpentier double choir piece with some singers and some of the flute players. So there was a few years of that kind of projects going on, until there was a moment where I found that people's interest seemed to be going down. People were starting to either to cancel or to turn up completely unprepared. So I thought I need to do something, and so I could choose. And between being trying to be a strict teacher and trying to bully people into getting prepared and being up for the project, or to try something completely different. And I decided to try something completely else. At that time, I was also performing a lot with traditional musicians, especially people from the Middle East, doing some Turkish music, and also a lot of Sephardic repertoire. And with doing that repertoire came a practice where I would go on stage without having ever seen a note written on a page. And I thought, what if I dare to do this with my pupils, with my students, and do a concert project without scores. So that's what I decided to do, and not everybody was happy about it. There was a lot of muttering under breaths and all that kind of things. It was a kind of a crazy project for me as well, because so we did two rather short pieces by group. So I had to learn 6 pieces, all the parts by heart, because I thought if they have to learn it by heart, I have to be able to teach it to them by heart as well. So that's what I did, and also made little audio clips so people could take it home and practice there. And it was quite remarkable in the way the outcome was of that project, because I found when we finally performed the pieces, so after a whole semester working on only 2 pieces, I found that the level of performance was extremely high in terms of playing together, of energy, of captivating the mood of the piece, of being in the spirit of the composition. And the other thing was that I saw that people were really happy afterwards. It was also a sense of relief. Yeah, we did this really difficult thing that we thought we were not able to do, and we did it. But there was also something else. There was also a kind of joy that came from it that was absolutely infectious. It was really, really beautiful to see. And so that gave me really a lot of food for thought. And more and more, I was gravitating towards a way of teaching and rehearsing also for myself that today I would label as holistic. And what does that word exactly mean? It means actually that something or a project that is holistic is characterized by the belief that the parts of it are interconnected and can be explained only by the reference to the whole. So that's actually the definition that I found for that word. And for me, this holistic approach is basically more a mindset. It's more a mindset than really a method. And so the characteristic is that all elements influence each other. So in that philosophy also, the outcomes are kind of hard to predict. In a setting of a concert, for instance, imagine if you would be playing Jenkins' Newark Siege, and I would be telling something about trumpet signals on the battlefield. And all of a sudden I would notice that someone's body posture would be much improved, or the rhythmical precision has increased. So there is a big irrational, intuitive, unpredictable element to it for sure. So in that sense, it's not something very easy to talk about. And it's a mindset for me that is very related to improvising, in the sense that you need a set of skills and tools, both if you're tutoring or when you're a member of the concert and you want to get into that kind of work. So you need a skill set, the tools, and then you basically have to stay open and alert on the moment. That's exactly what you do when you're improvising. It's hard to predict what is happening, but you have to be very connected. So to tell you about this, I had to do a little bit contradictory. That's actually thinking about all the different parts, all the analyzing and pulling apart a little bit what are the different parts to a consort experience. So when I started making the list, it showed very quickly that it's actually an infinite list of factors that determine the experience that you have when you're playing consort. So first of all, you have when you're walking in a room where you will be playing or tutoring as a concert player, you have your state of mind, and you have the shape that your body is in. So what is your state of mind? Are you preoccupied by something? Are you feeling relaxed? Do you feel tired? Do you feel that you are in a kind of receptive state of mind or not? Do you feel anxious about something? Do you feel confident? So all these kind of the things that are going on in your head. Of course, another thing is that there is your fellow players. How many of them are there? Do you know them? Have you played together for a long time? Have you seen each other recently? Did you play recently? What is their state of mind? How are they doing? That's another element. And then there's, of course, the repertoire. Are you familiar with the pieces you're going to play? Do you like them? Are you afraid of them? Are they challenging for you? Or are they maybe boring to you because you've played them so many times and you know them inside out? Do you have good memories with those pieces? Do you remember them from previous sessions? Then there is, of course, the room that you're going to play in. What is the room like? What are the acoustics of the room? What is the temperature, the atmosphere? What is the light? How does the room make you feel? Is there enough room for everyone? Then there are the instruments you play. Are you familiar with the instrument you're going to play? Is it your instrument? Is the instrument in good condition? Or are you playing maybe, usually you're playing on the bass and today you're playing on the treble. So where are you with that? Same goes for the bows, of course. And then also another element could be, is it a tutored session or not? And how is that? Do you like being tutored? Does it make you nervous? Are you not sure you're going to like it? All these kinds of elements will be very much determining about what happens when you start playing together. And of course, all the other people in the room will have also the same considerations, the same questions with, of course, different answer. So when the list is so overwhelmingly long and there's so many elements, where do you start? And for me, the starting point is a word I already mentioned once. It's connections and connectivity. And so for me, when I play consort and when I'm teaching a concert class, there is let's say three big categories of connections to make. And it's a little bit artificial because they are not at all separate from each other. But if you would put them in three big groups, it would be the connection you make to the music, the connection you make to yourself, and the connection you make to the other players. So if we think about the connections to ourselves in the first place, then we're really talking about body awareness, for instance. How am I sitting? Just how am I conscious of my body and my technique, my psychomotoric skills? And then so the connection to the other players, of course, happens a lot through listening, but not only. But are we feeling the same pulse? For instance, are we in the same groove? I would say. Do we have a little bit of visual contact with each other? Are we encouraging of each other? What signals we're receiving? What signals we're giving to other people? And then the third one is the connection to the music, and that is how is the music living in our head? What is our inner representation of the music? Can I hear the melody that I'm going to play? Can I yeah, can I feel the tempo that I'm going to choose? Can I feel the mood or the energy of the piece that we're about to play? Do I have a representation of the tone I want to make, for instance? Do I have a kind of representation of what I want the balance to be in the group? Do I want to hear a lot of the melody in the treble, or do I need to hear the inner voices or the bass more? So this is a little bit of being more explicit about those three categories. And so this connection, connecting to something, how does that actually go? What are the mechanics of it? Of course, this all belongs also to the field of psychology. I'm not a psychologist at all myself. I had some psychology course when I did my teacher's training, but it would be very interesting to talk with people in the field of psychology about this. But I know how it works. For me, I know it mostly because of doing yoga. That's something I didn't say in the introduction, but I've been doing body work for quite a long time, yoga, and also a martial arts that's called kinomichi. And the yoga has really taught me how to connect to my body. And I remember, for instance, very well when I was 18, I was studying the modern violin, and my teacher would tell me, Thomas, your wrist is really tense. It didn't mean absolutely nothing to me. I could not do anything with that information because I could not feel that my wrist was tense. So through doing yoga and trying to implement yoga in my practicing, technique, viol technique, I mean, I managed to develop that quality of when I want to check with a certain body part, I can go there with my awareness. And so what happens is, when you go somewhere with your awareness and you feel that body part, you feel, for instance, your elbow, then it's basically what you're doing is observing. So you will see, where is my elbow? Is it high? Is it low? Does it feel tense? Does it feel very heavy? And then actually, without really doing something, there will be a reaction almost automatically will be there. So it's really the matter of going somewhere with your awareness and then trusting that a kind of correction or an adaptation will happen. That sounds maybe all of that sounds maybe a little bit what they call in French fleur bleue, blue flower, maybe a little bit too unconcrete. But I hope I will be able to make it much more precise with a lot of examples. But before we get into that, I would ask Frances if she wants to play a video of a project I did a few years ago. It was during COVID, the time where we were not really allowed to go on stage. And I decided to do a project called Dialogen, which is dialogues in Dutch. And it was the principal idea was to to see if that 17th century idea of the viol as the best imitation of the human voice, if it could be extended outside of Baroque music, outside of 17th century music. So I asked a lot of people that use their voice, singers, actors, to do a dialogue with me, and I made 8 different videos that you can see on YouTube, and most of them imply quite a big element of improvisation. And the one we're going to see is actually, that felt for me also, that implied a lot of holistic skills. And so it's Laura, this Belgian soprano, who is more into, she's very much into contemporary music. And we learned a personal canon, the famous one that is, of all the instruments that are, none with the viol can compare, which, according to some people, proves that Henry Purcell didn't like the viol because it's a bit of a snidey text with a lot of onomatopoeic material in it. So there's like an imitation of the viol, and not the nicest ones necessarily. And so we kind of built an improvisation from it. So Francis, please go ahead with the video. Thank you.
Okay, here goes.
By Henry Purcell. Na, na, na. Are the instruments that are none, 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 none. Sweep. All their instruments, all their instruments that are none, 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 with the viol can compare. Mark, oh the strings, their order keep, with the wet, sweep, sweep, sweep. And above all, this still abounds with a sing, sounds, and as it sets sounds of all the instruments, all the instruments that are
So I was saying, with the making of these videos, there was also a lot of video editing to be done. And now there was something that really struck me, and that's apparently a very common thing in video editing, is whenever there's like a more boring moment or a mistake in the music, because when you do improvisations, not everything is perfect. When there's a moment when you want to turn the attention away from the what's happening in the music, you just cut to another image at that moment, and that is actually a very strong element in psychology, is that that the visual aspect will be very dominant on the oral information. So it's used a lot in video editing, and it's really. I was surprised how strong it is, and so actually this visual domination was something I was trying to get rid of as much as possible in my viol consort tutoring, and by excluding that visual aspect and also the cognitive process of the reading, it becomes much easier, in my opinion, to have access to the other cognitive processes, the listening, also the body awareness, the psychomotorics, awareness of the space, the sound, and also the emotions, how you feel with the music, how the music makes you feel. So turning away from this sheet music was really an essential element for me. But then, of course, concert music is not an easy repertoire to memorize. It's not easy. It doesn't have a lot of choruses. It doesn't have a lot of repetitive elements. So there's a big challenge for us. It's not an easy repertoire to play by heart. So let's have a look at how it can be done. And I recommend it actually to everybody that plays in a consort, even for professional groups in the beginning or the end of a concert, to try at least to do once, or albeit a very, very short piece by heart. It's a very, very different experience, and it works well within the group, and it communicates extremely well to an audience. So here again, I've been trying to group the exercises into the categories of the three basic connectivities that I was speaking about before. And some of the exercises are very, very simple. Other ones are a bit more complicated. But the first thing, maybe let's start with the connections to the group, to the other players. And a thing that you noticed when you play traditional music with people is that the first thing that will always be there is a common groove, a common tactus. And I find often in viol concert is the most difficult thing to find, to be exactly in the same speed, but speed is not the only thing. It's exactly the same movement. I think it's a basic thing that everybody imagines the same kind of tactus. If some people are counting in 4, other people are counting in 2, or I should say feeling and counting, it will be very, very different. I also think of the singers that used to sing in cathedrals or in churches in the 16th century. You often see those standing in a group very close together, everybody looking at the same big choir book. And what you very often will see is that The people in the back will have their hand on the shoulder of the singers in front of them, which will often be smaller people or boys singing. And so, of course, when you have a hand on the shoulder, it's very easy to pass a tactus onto somebody that's standing in front of you. Of course, we with the viol we cannot do that because we have stuff in our hands. But I think you can work on a tactus. I really like imagining the tactus as a circle. And very often I find that a wider, broader tactus is much more apt, much more effective for the music we play, be it fantasias or pavans or even galliards or other music. But feeling a slow, wide tactus, a broad tactus together, it's very, it's challenging. So an exercise that I like to do with people is just have them click the tactus, imagining a circle, and trying to be exactly together with a click, and then to do that with eyes closed. So this is an exercise you don't even need your viol for. So that you really get into this feeling of the slow tactus. And then I think the art in the concert playing is how do I fit the faster notes into the tactus. I can see also there is a dog joining us now, interested in the tactus. Okay. And so I would also invite people to speak their rhythms with doing this movement. So yan da di da 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 dum bum bim bum bum da di da dum da di da 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 di dum bum ba di da 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 dim bum bum. So to speak the rhythms of their part. In the case you go back to reading the score. You can just also introduce all different rhythms, like dotted rhythms, tim pam pim pam pim pam pim pam pam, or dotted rhythms but quicker, yan tadin tadam tadin tadam tadin tadam tadin tadam, which gives a very, very different feel than yan tadin tadam tadam, than having a faster tactus. And so once everybody feels that same common tactus and the way of relating to it, then maybe it's a good moment to go back to the viol and try it on the instrument and try it while reading. Even a very simple dotted rhythm like tim pam pam, the timing of the short note will be very different if you think pam 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 or tam pam pam. It's very important that everybody has the same idea about it. Otherwise, those small notes will probably likely be a quaver. They will never come together in the group. And so another element that is very easy to work on, to work with when you're doing this kind of work with those scores is scales. Everybody probably has practiced scales at one moment in their lives, and it's a very simple thing that you can use to practice a lot of different things. One thing you can practice with is dynamics. You can play scales in lots of dynamic shapes, like this, or in a big diminuendo or a big crescendo, and also learning to go against the tessitura. So like when you're going up, doing a diminuendo, when you're going down, doing a crescendo, all that kinds of things work really well. Scales work well when you play them in as a round, like in a canon of a third. So tam pam, and then the next person starts tam pam. So you can really exhaust scales. Also for practicing sound quality, it's a beautiful thing to practice legato also in all kinds of tempos, different kinds of bowings. Think of the scale. Another way you can use scales is for practicing rhythmical continuity or tempo continuity. There's often in viol music you will find somebody playing ya da da dum, and then another person directly after that playing ya da da dum. So, and there should be a scale together ya da 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 dum. So you can play scales with two or more people. Everybody takes four notes, and the tempo should be absolutely stable. Then you can take two notes ta-dum, ta-dum, pa-dum, pum, per person, or even three, which is very challenging. Ta da da dee da da ta da dee ta da da. So scales are just really a go-to for me for practicing all kinds of scales off the page or away from the page. Another thing I like to use is simple melodies that are rounds. And you can do a well-known one like London's Burning, or a very simple one like this, and divide your concert in several groups and play it as a round. But it's also nice to do an exercise with a canon that people might not know, and this is also very good for ear training and for memory training. Maybe let's do an experiment. I will play a canon. It's a Flemish folk song, so I'm quite convinced nobody will know it. And just where you are, or if at home, you don't have to unmute, but try to sing the canon to me. Okay, let's try. No, can you? I cannot see if you can see me.
Oops.
Okay. So, I mean, okay, there we go. So I'll count 4 beats, and this is the note we will start on. And so you will come in after 4 beats. So I count 4 beats, I play 4 beats, and then you start singing. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I hope that was a good experience for you. What you do here is training something extremely important, which is playing and listening at the same time. And that's probably the biggest, one of the biggest challenges in concert music is developing the very acute listening skills, especially with 4, 5, 6 instruments with the same timbre. It's not always easy to understand what's going on, and there's often lots of information from the polyphony that we all have to kind of work with whilst playing our part ourselves. So training that double focus is really important, and like playing rounds or being the second part or the third part even in a round that you are discovering is an extremely good exercise for it. Then another exercise that is really good for connecting to a group is working with a very small fragment of the piece that you are working on. So imagine you are playing a pavan that everybody can rather quickly learn 2 bars by heart of a pavan, and then what you can do in a group, for instance, is that every player in turn is in charge for starting. So everybody will have a chance of giving the beginning of the piece in the energy and the speed that they want. And then a next step in this same exercise is actually starting with your eyes closed. So it sounds maybe a little bit unlikely, but I've done it many times with groups, and it is possible to start together without anybody giving the sign, actually, just by feeling the attention or the tension in the room. And it's amazing how it opens the ears. Another thing you can do, for instance, with a fantasia, which is of course they often have or almost always have beginnings which are contrapuntal, so every voice comes in a part. But most of the time, everybody will play the theme and also the counter theme at a given point. So it's good to lift just at the beginning of that, to lift it out, put the score away, and that everybody plays it in unison or in octaves, even if it's in your part, if it comes in the 5th or in the 4th or whatever, but that everybody plays it in octaves, that you can, and you play it all together, all the players, and then try out all the different bowings that you can, all the different dynamics you can do. So for instance, if the beginning of a fantasia would be, I'm thinking of a Ravenscroft now, I think. Can you see me? So just the first bar, or first 2 bars, depending on your edition, to just play that together, to have the same shape, and then try out how does it feel when I start pull. How does it feel if I slur the second set of quavers? For instance. So that you really come into a feeling, that you really come into a feeling of how how that works under the bow, how that works with the combination of the fingering with the bowing that you choose, with the dynamics that you would like to do. So maybe so far for the exercises that are more towards connecting to the group. Maybe it's a good moment now to speak a little bit about the exercises that are more about connecting to oneself, and then we're thinking maybe basically of technique and of body awareness, and maybe I'll speak shortly about technique first. In this whole holistic process, and also during the time of COVID, and I decided to make a little book. It's called The Natural Violist. It's a book with 15 exercises, as you can see. And I made it together with Bram Olieu, who is a wonderful illustrator. And so it has 15 exercises. My idea was that every exercise is represented by an animal. For instance, the first animal that comes along is the tree frog. And the exercise is called Sticky Fingers. And I'm sure you all have heard many times about how you have to leave your fingers down. And as you can see, there is very little text. I tried to be as short as possible, trying to give all the elements, and then have the exercises speak for themselves. And in that way, I hoped to be a bit complementary to Alison's wonderful books, where she does explain in great detail and in lots of precision. And maybe in that way, I thought it would be very good to have different way of approaching, because some people, not everybody wants to learn in the same way. And so basically all the exercises in here are exercises that you can also practice together. And often it's really much more fun than on your own. So the first one, yes, maybe I see we have 10 minutes left, and I also want to leave space for questions. So maybe I would say I will leave you to discover if you're interested, to discover the exercise in the book yourself. There's also a QR code in the book, which takes you to my website, where you can see me doing QR code is there, where you see me playing the exercises that might be of help. And I wanted to work together with Bram to give this feel to the book, exactly to put people in a kind of mindset where they feel calm and in an aesthetic way stimulated to work that could be considered as boring. So that's something. So let's go to the body exercises that I want to, the body awareness exercises that I want to tell you about today. And most of them actually you can do even holding a viol. Let's see if I can, if I sit here. So one thing you can do is what in yoga they call cat and cow, is where actually you roll over your sitting bones. So you go, maybe you can see it better when I'm like this. So you make a hollow back, and then a hollow back, and then the opposite, convex and concave. And this will give you mobility and will prevent you from getting too tense in your back. Another part that very often gets very tense when we're playing long concert sessions is the neck, and that is often because of reading. We have a tendency to put our chin forward. So a very good exercise is actually to push your chin back while you are trying to grow with your head. So trying to make as many double chins as you possibly can. So back and up, and this will give you a stretch in the back muscles here of your neck. That will be very welcome after a few hours of reading music. Also, to keep the head free, which is a very good exercise, is imagining that you're painting flat eights or infinity symbols with your nose. So to starting very small and making them gradually wider. And while doing this, our attention is very much in the back of our heads. So you will feel how the rolling will free up that place where your skull and your neck meet, and that gets very often very tense. Yeah. What you can also do holding a viol very easily is another exercise that comes from yoga is lifting your shoulders to your ears on an inhale and drop your shoulders. This might feel very relaxing, especially between the shoulder blades. And then there's different stretches that you can do. This may be hard to see, but I'm grabbing my opposite wrist with my hand and just stretching it out to one side and then to the other. And while you do this, you can breathe in the side that you're opening. So fill your lung with air. And try to lengthen that spine. Yeah. And always with your head nice and back, never come forward. Another exercise I like to do a lot is going to the opposite side of my head with my hand, and then very, very gently pulling up and to the side. So not directly to the side, but going in a diagonal up. And your fingertips should be somewhere around your ear. And you can wiggle a little bit there. And then you will feel that nice stretch that goes from your shoulder to your ear, and it will help you to relax the muscle here that has been doing a lot of work. So, and also important to stay in balance and do both sides. So here you have the stretch. And then maybe a last one or two more. One that I like to do that you cannot do with a viol. It's a spinal twist. So when you do it in the sitting variant, you will put your hand on the outside of your knee and turn up like this. Also the other side. So. And the last one would be eagle arms, also a bit challenging to do if you have really a viol sitting here, but it's a pose where you cross your arms and you're trying to bring the hands together. For some people, this is really enough. This will give you already a big stretch in between your shoulder blades. If you don't feel the stretch, you can very gently imagine that your elbows go up And don't forget to breathe. And the higher you go, the more you increase the stretching between the shoulder blades. So these are some ideas for that. I see it's already later than I thought it was, so I'm gonna check if there's important things that I haven't talked about. Singing, of course, is something, if people feel comfortable with singing, it's a great way to connect with the music and with the others in the group. Also, sound-wise, things that can be very interesting. What I've sometimes done as a tutor when people are playing, then using the score, is go around and put my hands like this, so the sound comes from a completely different place. It's a very different experience. So if you have an extra person in the room that is not playing, you can ask them to do it. Also, if that extra person is there, what is very nice to experiment is when you ask that person to put, especially if it's somebody with heavy hands, to put their hands on your shoulder while you're playing, and you will feel all the moments where you want to tense up. It's a very nice thing that you can work together. And then the last element, and I think this is maybe a bit the culmination point of this holistic method, is working on improvisation. So we did it today here in Dublin in the concert sessions. I started out with a modal improvisation, which means as long as you stay in the mode, in the scale that you are in, every note pretty much is okay to play. We made a little estampie. An estampie is a medieval dance that always has a little chorus at the end of each phrase. It's an open version or a closed version. And so we used that as a chorus, and we did 4 bars improvisations with always a chorus in between. And I think it was great fun. And I was impressed with what people could do actually today. And from there, we went to a 2-chordal improvisation. So we kept the drone that we had before in the modal improvisation, and we added the sub finales. So we started on D as a drone, and we D, 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 and we improvised just on those 2 chords. And from there, it's a very small step to, for instance, the passamezzo antico that is in Ortiz, which is also a very, very good thing to do for improvisation. It is in Ortiz's book, it has a 4-part setting, and it's very easy to learn by heart. So you can, if there's with the number of players that are there, you can play this polyphony and then go into playing divisions. As a tutor, you will maybe want to give some vocabulary also around these divisions, which can be done also in a very in a non-reading way, by playing and repeating. So if I would play tam pam, if the original would be tam pam pam pam, and then it become tiam tam tadadam tadadam, and then tam tam tadadadadidam. And so then again, you doing at the same time you training this ear training, it's memory training, and it's people learning to pick up from each other. So that's something that you can take away from a tutor that feels comfortable with it, or if there's somebody in the group that feels really at home with improvising, that is a great way to work. And the very last thing I want to speak about, because I think it's such a gorgeous tool for improvising, is a app on your smartphone called Passaggi, and you do write that with double S and double G. It's been developed by a British cornetto player, um, Helen Roberts, and I think Mark is looking for it now on his phone, and he maybe can show us what the icon looks like on the screen. I don't know. But anyway, this app is absolutely brilliant. It has all the treatises on there, and it will play the madrigals to you and the ostinato grounds that you want to improvise on at this in the speed that you want and in the on the pitch that you want, and you can put it on a loop, and you can so you can improvise as long as you want. I think it costs something like £17, if I'm not mistaken, and you have it basically for your life. So imagine that. So thank you, a big thanks to Helen for doing all that amazing work. The madrigals and the ostinati are played on an organ that is rather mean tonish. So also you get a nice temperament on top of all that. And I think the pitch you can vary from 392 up till 460 something, or even higher. So yes, that's a really a great way to practice improvisation. And I think that's maybe my my concluding idea. And I just want to add one more thought that is something that comes from Taoism, that is the way or the road is the goal. So I think that's a mindset that is very connected also to what I've just been telling you. Even when you do a concert, I like to see it as a certain point in a process, and that happens to have people that will be listening to you. But everything is always in movement. So yes, that's it. I have already exceeded a little bit of time, but if people want to stay and ask questions, I don't know, Francis, if that is still available. What do you think?
Yes, absolutely. We can leave this chat running a little bit longer. So if anyone's got any questions for Thomas, then yeah, absolutely, there's time to ask them. And
Yeah.
we can also leave the chat open if people just want to chat as well.
Yes. Or if you want to share experiences around this, then feel very welcome.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Thomas. It's been lovely. I see John's got his hand up.
Thank you, Thomas. I just had one question. In your three categories of connectivity, you didn't mention audiences. And for those of us that play to audiences, how do you relate what you've been talking about this evening, which I found really fascinating, to the concert situation, which is very different from playing to yourselves in a room?
Yes, exactly. I was thinking about that also. And it's even if it's a further it's an extra focal point actually to make that connection with the audience. I think it works exactly with the same principles, with the same mechanics of it. But I think it's something that is added ideally where the other things are already connected, so that you will extend your connection with your fellow players and with the music extended then to the audience. But if the other factors are not there, then it's not really possible to carry through that connection through the audience. But for me, it's exactly the same. Actually, it feels the same to me. Connecting with the people I'm playing, and then connecting with the audience. And it can be challenging to to manage to keep your focus and your concentration at the same time being receptive for an audience and being in the moment. And but I know that I do it because when every time I play like a solo piece, it's going to be very different depending on the audience. So there must be a subconscious process happening there that makes me change what I do to who is listening to me. Hello, John.
Hi. Thomas, is there a plan? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly well.
Is there a plan to publish your book in other versions, like Alison's books for treble and for tenor, or Francis Baines's books, which come in these different editions for different viol players reading different clefs? Do you have a plan to do that?
No, there is no plan, but I find it an excellent idea, and I should talk to the editor about it.
Yes.
It will depend a bit, I think, how well it's sold and stuff. So,
Yes. Yes.
yeah, but for sure, it's a bit because of the illustrations. It's a bit of an expensive thing to print.
Yes. Yes.
If there's enough interest, I'm sure it would be a very good thing. Thank you for the
Or it
suggestion.
could simply be that the exercises are given in another format that you from your website with the QR code.
Yes.
That could be a way to do it also, maybe.
I know I actually remember that somebody in the States already transposed them for tenor and treble in the other clefs.
Oh, yeah. You're interesting. Yeah. Good.
I wrote you about that, actually. They're here, Michael and Edith.
It's
Oh,
you.
yeah.
Okay, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
And thank you so much for doing that.
Could we maybe get
Yeah.
some? Could we maybe avail of those somehow or other? That would be great. If that was possible.
We should send them to Mr. Baeté.
That would be nice.
All right.
Just did them for ourselves.
I see we also have a hand up from another Thomas.
Yes, thank you very much. A fascinating talk. I would like to take you back to the improvisation bit. And you explained very well towards the end how you start off on a simple, modal bass or whatever. But your dialogue much earlier was a world away from that. Can I say, how long did it take you to get to know your counterpart, the singer, well enough to be able to do this? And did you have any kind of framework? You had roughly worked out what you were going to do, or did it just sort of come out of your obviously very creative imagination?
Well, I knew that Laura was crazy enough to to go into improvisation and just try out. So the only thing that we said, we met once to learn the round, to learn the catch, the Purcell catch, but not more than that. And then on the day itself, we said, okay, we'll just start with the onomatopoeic material that is in the catch, the zingle, 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 and the sweep, sweep, and start from there, and then just see what comes and build. Yeah, I have done a little bit of free improvisation when I was in conservatory, but it was really fun to do. But it was just diving into deep water, really. Yeah. I don't know if there's other.
I don't see any more raised hands. Oh, Patricia, you.
I just want to say, as one of the guinea pigs for the improvisation, I found it really remarkable. And the wonderful thing about it was it gave me the confidence to imagine that I might someday learn how to do ornamentation. Because for me, as a player, it's very frustrating. I sometimes hear professionals playing, and I hear beautiful riffs in the music, especially in the second part of the tavern or something. And what's so exciting about them is that they're clearly, pure joy, they're gaiety found within the music. And they're so different from what I think of as horrible little ticks that sometimes people put in as ornaments, trills, and some very basic and rudimentary ornamentation. I think this idea, this free playing, potentially has the power to give us as amateur players some ideas about how to reach out to that capacity to ornament the playing in a way that's coming at it from a completely different place. And it's just something that Thomas didn't mention, and I thought I'd throw in. Obviously, improvisation has all kinds of benefits in its own right. That's my dog. Right. I'm just gonna have that in and give and it gives them some sort of sense of the huge possibilities that come from this improvisation practice.
Thank you very much. Patricia, I had really trouble of understanding you. But maybe somebody else wants to react. Was there a question in what you said? I could not really tell or understand it.
It wasn't so much a question as reinforcing the point of improvisation, not just for its own sake, but because of how it can bring you into the world of ornamentation, potentially. The freedom to make connections between notes in different ways. That makes sense to some people. Certainly that's what it did for me, doing it for the first time with you.
Yeah. But I think you also said a very important keyword, which is freedom, which is actually also the goal of what this kind of holistic mindset wants to achieve, that you feel free towards the music, towards the audience, towards the music you're playing. Yeah.
Do we have any more questions? Looks like no raised hands I can see. I'm just going to check the next screen just in case. No, looks like there's no raised hands. So I think we'll probably call it a day then. Thank you very much for that, Thomas. It was absolutely fascinating. And I certainly have found those yoga exercises extremely helpful. Been doing them as I'm sitting here, all tensed up in the cold and the snow. And yeah, they are definitely going to be very helpful. It's been a fascinating session. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you, Thomas. And also thank you, Francis, for guiding us through it.
No worries, a pleasure. And I have just put a little reminder into the chat. If anybody would like to make a generous donation, I'll just bang that drum again. If anyone would like to make a generous donation to help support these meetings, you can do so on the VDGS webpage, and the link is in the chat on this meeting if you'd like to.